Welcome to the ArmaniTalks YouTube channel, the #1 YouTube channel for you to level up your communication skills, learn the art of public speaking, social skills, and personal branding to take your message to the world. For today's episode, I'm going to be talking about the mechanisms of the mind. Try saying that 5 times. The mind is the staple of your communication skills. Once you start to understand the mind in a very deep level, and you start building an enthusiasm and learning more about the mindset, you start noticing that you just happen to become a better communicator. You still have to practice, don't get me wrong, but you feel more hopeful. You have more enthusiasm in learning about public speaking, how to write tweets, how to write daily emails, how to podcast, how to hold a conversation where you build charisma, you build likability. You can do all that once you understand the mind at a very, very nuanced, in-depth level. What about if you don't understand the mind? Can you still be very charismatic? Can you still be a very good communicator? Sure. I know a lot of people that are brilliant communicators that don't know diddly squat about the mind. However, with them, if they were to face certain problems, which are very common in the communication skills world, will they be able to properly diagnose it, troubleshoot exactly what's going on? That's when certain situations do arise that cause for conflict. Imagine that you're speaking to a certain fellow, and on this particular day, for this particular interaction, something doesn't feel right. You just don't feel good. You don't have enough energy. And when you don't have enough energy, it feels as though you're trying to get the words out. Rather than the words just flowing out, you're forcing it out. And the more that you're trying to force out the words, the more tired that you're feeling. And normally when you're feeling very tired, your ego starts to think, hey, what's going wrong? Who's making me tired like this? And what the ego is going to do is it's going to start blaming the other person. Oh, look at this guy talking about all this boring stuff. It doesn't interest me. Why is he talking so much? Why is he rambling so much? I don't like this at all. Because of this person, I'm feeling very low energy. Now, in any circumstance, if you start blaming someone else rather than yourself for how you're feeling, you are automatically conditioning yourself to be a victim rather than a victor. And this happens if you don't have a strong understanding of the mind because you think in too many outside worlds. Too many outside conditions are influencing your internal world. What I'm telling you to do is flip your focus. Focus all in on your mindset. Keep practicing your communication skills, yes, but here's the kicker. Communication skills is not the source. Mindset is the source. Communication skills is a derivative of that. This alone will help you become so much more charismatic and so much more dynamic in your communication skills journey. In today's episode, I'm going to give you a very in-depth understanding of the mindset because ultimately, understanding the mindset gives you so much more control and no one can understand the mindset for you. People can motivate you, people can inspire you, people can amp you up. Ultimately though, this is something that you have to experience for yourself. So in today's video, you're going to have the right tool sets, the right concepts of understanding in order to take the journey within. If you're ready to level up your mentality, make sure you drop a like right on below and let's begin. Isn't it cool how different parts of your life often connect with other parts of your life without you even intending it for that to be the case? That was the situation with me. In undergrad, I ended up joining a fraternity, and in the fraternity, my brother name was Brother Gear, Gear. I liked how crisp it was. I enjoyed the simplicity of it, and I felt like it was fire. That was me in my undergrad. By the time that I graduated and I was in the real world, I ended up writing my first ever book called Level Up Mentality. You see it right behind me. And in the cover art, you can notice that it's a bunch of random gears that are interconnected with one another. And that right there is what allowed me to connect my past to the present moment at that time. I don't know if there was any connections. However, I saw connections. I mean, my first ever book on mentality It happens to be gears, and if you take out one gear, the rest of the gears stop moving. What does that mean? What that means is that this thing that we call the mind is a complex system. A system, in a nutshell, is basically when the sum of the parts combined equals something much, much greater. Wait a minute, Armani. That sounds confusing. You mind giving me an example? Sure, your car. Your car, it has so many different parts, doesn't it? However, imagine if someone just gives you one of the parts by itself. It's your birthday party and your dad gives you a steering wheel. You're gonna think, what the hell am I gonna do with this? It's just a steering wheel. It doesn't make much sense. Exactly. The steering wheel alone doesn't mean much, but a steering wheel in the car, it gives birth to something brand new. A car. Let me give you another example. Imagine you're about to get your first ever car, and your car salesman shows you the perfect car. You feel as though this right here is the car for you. And right before you're about to sign the papers, the car salesman's like, oh, by the way, I just wanted you to know, this particular car, it doesn't have the brakes. You're gonna think, it doesn't have the brakes? Well, that's a very, very big issue. Without the brakes, if I get in the road, I may die. Scratch that, I will die. And just like that, this beautiful car missing just one part, just the brakes, means absolutely nothing to you. That right there is how you should view your mindset. Your mindset is a very, very complex system with a lot of moving parts. And until you have the ability to connect the parts via your own journey, you're always going to feel scatterbrained. You're going to go from this thought, this thought, this thought, and you're just not going to feel fulfilled. We love our smartphones, don't we? Our smartphones, it has so much potential. Yet, if we were just to know that our minds are a much, much grander version of these smartphones, we will start paying a lot more attention to the mind. What are you talking about? I pay attention to the mind. I know the difference between a conscious mind and a subconscious mind. That right there gives a lot of people the illusion that they understand the mindset. If you were to ask someone, do you know the mindset? They'll say, well, yeah, I know the difference between the conscious and the subconscious mind. And don't get me wrong, that's great, but that's still very, very surface level understanding. That's like you giving someone a phone and they're saying, yeah, I know how to use the camera and I know how to store the pictures in it. I know how to use the smartphone, right? You're gonna think, this fool doesn't understand that they can use the smartphone to build a business, to get a Snapchat, to connect with people from around the world, to learn. This guy doesn't know anything about that. All he thinks is you could take pictures and store the pictures. It's the same thing when you think your understanding of the mind just stops with the conscious and the subconscious mind. That is not the case. The beauty about the mindset is you got to first understand that you are not the mindset. The day that you realize this is the day that you learn how to leverage this thing we call the mind. Wait a minute, Armani, I'm not the mind? No, at a pure level, you are consciousness, and the mind rests on top of that. The day that you can identify with the consciousness is the day that you could play around with the mind. And this often happens when we're going through a very tough moment. Let's say rock bottom. During rock bottom moment, what happens is we are going through a very, very tough time. We are feeling a lot of sensations, a lot of thoughts may be going through our mind. And around that time, all those thoughts that are going in, we start just observing it from afar. This thought, this thought, this thought, this thought. If all this stuff are going on around me, and this thing that I used to identify with called the mind is just moving around, just observing all these thoughts, then who am I? When you start asking yourself this, that's when you start waking up. And instead of being the mind, you start using the mind. It starts becoming a tool. You don't drive a car and say, I'm the car. You say, I am Armani driving the car. It's a different paradigm shift. And when you start realizing this, that's when you can start to play around with the mentality. Okay, so now you have been able to detach yourself from what you call the mind, and now you can understand the mind. All right, Armani, I've detached myself. Now what? Now what is that you got to understand that with the mind, simplicity leads to complexity. Let me reiterate, simplicity leads to complexity. This video that you're seeing right now, this right here isn't me. This is just a digital depiction of me. It seems very realistic, it sounds like me, but it just isn't me. If you try to hug me right now, you will hit a flat screen, whatever you're watching it from, which reiterates that although I look 3D at the moment, it's actually 2D pixels giving you the illusion that I look 3D. So how does this vast complexity come to be? I mean, how is it that you're able to see a virtual depiction of me? Something very complex must have gone into this, right, Armani? Not really. If you understand the basic fundamentals of your digital tools, you'll realize that transistors, which have on and off states mixed with rules, create something very, very complex. And these little on and off states mixed with rules create little pixels. On and off states mixed with rules create audio. Combine a lot of pixels with a lot of audio, and you get a virtual depiction of me, which goes on to show you that from just simple little concepts, just understanding these little fundamentals, you could keep warping it until you could change your reality. Same thing with the mindset. And the simple concepts that you need to understand are just 4 simple fundamentals, which are input, process, store, and output. Understand these 4, and you could play around with the mind however you want to based off of your particular life. And yes, you have to play around with it because earlier on I said that no one is going to give you a tough mindset for you. This is something that you have to do on your own. You have to mature, you have to grow up, and you have to learn how to play with your mindset. So what do these 4 have to do with everything that you see around you? Let's break down each one. Input. Input is when your mind is using your 5 senses via your touch, your seeing, your smelling, your breathing, all that stuff to absorb the data from the external world. And based off of that data, now you are processing. This is where conscious and subconscious mind come into play. And you're processing these different data in a very unique rule set based off of your past experiences. The subconscious mind is your database. You are basically storing all the data that you have ever had from the very minute that you were born all the way up till right now. That is your subconscious mind. And then you output that information via language, via your art, via your personal brand, whatever the case is. But when you understand these 4, you start playing around with your mindset with certain frameworks. Rather than just saying, oh yeah, I'm going to understand the mind, you understand now that there are nuances to this. And everyone's nuances are different, but these 4 are something that all humans share. Which is why just saying, oh, well, I understand the conscious mind and the subconscious mind, that's it, right? No, that is not it. Because I just showed you that there's 4 elements. And your conscious mind, did you ever ask yourself what your conscious mind is able to do? It's able to do a lot of stuff. Just like for a smartphone, it's able to do a lot more stuff than just take pictures. It can communicate, it can grab information for you, it can allow you to conduct transactions. Same thing with your conscious mind. I'll just give you a few things that your conscious mind can do. You can exercise a will. What is focus? Focus is just you exercising your will at a target for a very long period of time. Keyword, exercise. You can do that with your conscious mind. That's what separates very tough-minded, disciplined people from very, very sloppy people. Their will is just different. So that's one of the powers of your conscious mind. What's another power? Imagination. I mean, you can get any kind of pictures that you want and form an idea around that. Isn't that pretty dope? Any idea that you want, you can create that with your your conscious mind. What's another thing it could do, Armani? I'm liking this. It has the intellect. That means you can get data from the external world and you can say, this applies to me in my life, this doesn't apply to me. This applies to me, this doesn't apply to me. So this is something else that your conscious mind can do. How often are you exercising these different components? Your subconscious mind, you can store any idea that you want in it. But if you don't store any idea that you want in it, then others will simply program their ideas for you. That's why it's so easy to brainwash people, because if you think about it, it's just brainwashing their subconscious mind. If you can do that, then the subconscious mind provides thoughts to the conscious mind. I mean, it's not rocket science, but it becomes rocket science because we're focusing so much on the complexity. I'm telling you to go back to just these 4 components. Just understand these 4 components. So if you're someone who's like, all right, Armani, I want to learn about the mindset. What do I do? What you do is first realize that you are not the mindset. You're simply the user of the mind. And this can happen via multiple ways. It could happen via tough times. It could happen via knowledge from this video, for example. But once you detach yourself from the mind, what I want you to do is use these 4 components to maneuver the mind, to play around with the mind, to control and dictate the mind. And that's where you're sort of on your own, because at this point, you have to go through these experiences yourself. Throughout our entire life, we were taught so much about objective science, but we were never taught about the subjective science. And I get it, because subjective science is very difficult to explain via hard principles. Objective science is what I call hard sciences. It's all this stuff around you that you can measure with tests, experiments, repeatability, etc. That's what I had to do for the beginning of my career as an engineer. Subjective science is what communication skills comes down to. These are when you focus inward on your experiences. And other people can't experience your experiences for you. Only you can do that, which is why becoming a great communicator is requiring you to look in. Don't have the objective sciences mentality towards a subjective science, which is communication skills. Let me reiterate, communication skills requires you to look in. And as you're looking in, you start building a deeper relationship with your mindset. Now, with that being said, earlier on in this video, I said that you can see your mindset via your senses. You want to know how that is? You create content. You write tweets, you create speeches and record yourself, you make YouTube videos, and you know what you're doing? You're getting your mind and you're solidifying it via the help of technology. And later on, you can always review back. You can spot certain faulty usage of your mind. You're like, I can't believe I think like that. Wait a minute, this doesn't make logical sense. You're able to do that when you're able to detach yourself from afar. That's virtually what journaling comes down to as well. Journaling is you just turning your mind into words, and you're just observing your mind from afar. The more that you can observe your mind from afar, the more you realize, wait a minute, something is observing it. That's your core entity. That is your awareness that is observing the tool that you have been gifted, aka your mind. So you could just warm up with journaling, whatever the case is. I don't want this episode to get too complex, but I do want to leave it with one last tidbit of information. I call it level up mentality for a reason, because in our life, we have a decision to make. Either we can go up or we could go down. And the whole concept of maintaining, that right there is an illusion. Complex systems like your mind, like your car, there's no such thing as just maintaining it. You have to take care of it. Otherwise, it's just going to degrade over time. The thing with the car is that the minute that you take it off of the dealership, it loses a lot of value, right? Because it's just a physical property. However, with your mind, if you decide that you don't want it to lose value, you want to level it up, it can consistently gain value over time. Human beings of our modern era are monetizing their mindset. That means they're investing in their mindset, they're learning skill sets, they're building knowledge, and they're sharing that knowledge via their personal brand to build businesses. Yes, they're monetizing their mind. What is your business plan? My mind. That comes down to the level of mentality. Once you learn to level up, you make a commitment for a very, very long period of time. You could say for life. And you can always level up in different ways. You can start learning more. Information is all around you. You can start picking up a new skill set. You can start practicing, start teaching others. There's different ways to level up. The whole concept of you retiring on the beach and doing absolutely nothing, that's simply a mental construct that has been created by society to limit you. When you get limited like that, what happens is if you're not going up and you're trying to maintain, you eventually get pulled down. Just like we have gravity in the real world, your mind has gravity as well. It is up to you to fight against that. Otherwise, you are just going to degrade over time. The second that your mind starts degrading, you'll start to feel very physically weak, your emotions start to get all out of whack, and you feel like a very bitter version of yourself. That doesn't have to be the case though. Learn to level up. You can understand a lot of these frameworks via the level up mindset. You can grab a sweater like this to remind yourself to keep on leveling up for life, and ultimately just understand the in-depth versions of your mindset, which requires you to have a very, very experiential based approach. You have to mature on your own. You have to use these 4 little frameworks that I gave you. Input, what are you inputting into your life? Process, how are you leveraging your conscious mind? Keep on discovering new modes that you have available to you. You have to leverage your memory, your storage, your subconscious mind, and ultimately, you have to leverage your output. What is coming out of you? Are you leaving value on the table, or are everything that you're touching turning into dirt? That's all going to come down to you, and it's all going to come down to you and your relationship with your mindset. Understand your mindset and communication skills will be easy. You could talk about anything out there, you can tackle any venue out there, and eventually your message will be comprehended by everyone that is willing to listen. Thank you for joining the Armani Talks YouTube channel, and I'll catch you on the next episode.